So this week we finally got a new Transformers fan stream. This time it premiered hours after the toys went live. It was kind of weird. This was like it wasn't a surprise because we knew a couple days prior that we were going to be getting these pre-orders, but there were no posts on Instagram or anything. So it was just kind of like, here are some pre-orders, and later today, here's a live stream. Here's a video about the pre-orders. So let's get right into it. Age of the Primes, Armada Sideways is finally getting his wave mates. The way they revealed it was kind of weird because we got Onslaught and we got Armada Sideways and then nothing, and now we finally get the rest of the wave. So all the deluxes we already know. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. In the fan stream, the Hasbro designers did share some interesting facts. So starting off with Cliff Jumper. Cliff Jumper is just a re-release of the 4-pack Cliff Jumper. Everybody knew that. Mark did mention he wants to do a zombie version of Cliff Jumper eventually. And then this means for the next wave of Age of the Primes, we have a listing for Fangry, which is most likely going to be the Fangry from the 4-pack, just released by itself again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get more of this. Maybe a Ransack and Squeeze Play next. Who knows what else we'll get. And then on to Transformers Prime Smokescreen. Seeing videos and photos of it, I still don't like this mold. I still am a firm believer that the Transformers Prime figures should have their own molds. And doing this mix mash of G1 and Prime doesn't really work for me. I mean, this looks better than the original photos that we saw, but still, it doesn't really look like Prime Smokescreen. The chest is too bulky. I will give it some points. It's cool that he has his blasters on his hands and that he comes with the phase shifter molded in his arm. I think that's a really cool touch. Just I'm tired of this half G1, half Prime. I wish we could just get the Prime designs. On to Power Glide. Now this one kind of blew me away because we saw Power Glide a while ago. I thought he looks really good. He's even got a painted on rub sign in his jet mode. And I think he looks pretty good. And the front half of the cockpit being painted silver and the back half not being painted, initially I was like, oh, that's kind of lazy. Why would they only paint half of that? But looking at G1 in the cartoon, only the front is painted. The back is supposed to be like armor, I guess. So that's fine. That's cool. I think he looks really good. And then in robot mode is really where Power Glide shines. He gets a surprise mask from the episode, I think it was Hoist Goes to Hollywood or something. So that's a really, really cool addition. And we know we're also getting a Studio Series Sunstreaker soon. So part of me is wondering if the Sunstreaker we get is going to come with this exact same mask. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. And then the coolest thing is that it's not shown in any of these photos, but on Power Glide's box, you see that his chest opens up and he has the heart from the episode of The Girl Who Loved Power Glide or whatever. That is a crazy detail in a deluxe figure. Looking at pictures, I thought we were just going to get a cool Power Glide. Then we saw photos of his mask and it kind of blew my mind. And now we know that his chest opens up and you get the heart inside of his chest. This is crazy. The designer specifically said that Power Glide felt like a mini Masterpiece mini bot, and I see why they said that. So I do want to see it in person, but I'm really impressed with Power Glide. He might be my favorite in this set of reveals. On to Swerve quickly. I know people like IDW Swerve more, but we already have a toy of that. We don't have a modern G1 Swerve, so I'm happy we got this. The truck mode is a little goofy looking, but I think Swerve looks good in robot mode. And Mark did mention that he would like to do, he put some gray in the design because he didn't think the all-white looked right, but there is potential for an all-white Swerve later on, so just keep that in mind. After this, there was a lot of talk about mini-bots in these streams, and Mark did mention throttle bots again, and that's a couple times recently that throttle bots have been mentioned, which really makes me wonder if we're going to see them in 2027 or maybe 2028. And now we get into what is widely considered the most disappointing Prime out of all 13 of the Primes, and that is Nexus Prime. Now, initially, I was really excited for Nexus Prime. He's the Prime of Combination. He's going to come with the Enigma of Combination, and based on the box art for Age of the Primes, it was looking super, super cool. And then we learned he was going to be a Voyager, and I really had no idea how they were going to do a Nexus Prime at a Voyager price point. because he combines, like the original Nexus Prime was a combiner made up of all these members, and it was exclusives in that. But I was like, maybe at Voyager it'll be something like Amalgamous, where his limbs can come off sort of weaponizer style and turn into little vehicles or something. I had no idea. And the end result is pretty disappointing. Some people do like it, and I'll give them that. But to me, this just is so mid. I don't know. Like, I think the colors are too bright. In the fan stream, the colors looked a little bit darker than the promo photos, but still a little too bright. The robot mode just looks super generic, super bland. The head looks cool, and the designers did say that the robot mode is based on Transformers 1 Nexus Prime, who I'm not a big fan of all the Transformers 1 designs in the first place. So the robot mode looks really basic. The jet mode is horrible. It looks really, really bad in vehicle mode. And I'm all for like weird alt modes, cool Cybertronian alt modes. But this just doesn't look very good. And then we learned that underneath the cockpit in jet mode is a combiner head. And this is going to be a combiner. And then we saw photos of the combine mode. And it's, like, I like the combiner head, but the chest just doesn't look good. And the fact that you have to have a commander class Superion, and it's likely going to work with Bruticus. So you already have to have a commander class figure on top of this for it to work. And even then, it doesn't look that good. So you have to say you have commander class Silverbolt. You put him into Superion mode, you twist the torso around, fold it down, and you put Nexus Prime in where Silverbolt goes. But there's not a lot of mass on Nexus Prime, so it makes the chest of the combiner look really hollow and really empty and just not that good, and it looks so disappointing. Not to mention, there's none of this on the box, and I kind of get where Hasbro's going with this. If they say, hey, this figure combines with other figures, you'd think they'd want to advertise that. But if they say that this figure combines with other figures, people might be like, oh, so to get this gimmick to work, I have to buy a $120 Commander class figure for this figure to work with that? And people might get upset by that. But at the same time, if you don't know, you're not going to know. And you're going to see this really basic looking Transformer, this really bland looking Transformer with a horrible alt mode, and be like, what? I'm not paying $44 for this. But if you can learn that it does actually work as a combiner, then maybe you might be willing to spend more money. So I think I am going to get it to complete my primes, but I think it is going to be my least favorite of the primes. It's pretty disappointing to me, but there's a little bit of redemption, because in the live stream, they did say that Nexus Prime's limbs are coming next year in 2027. And they can't show it yet. They can't announce it yet. They can't put it on his box that you could buy his limbs separately because it's for a different year. They also mentioned that Nexus was originally going to be a leader and a combiner all in one. And then they were toying with the idea of doing a Duocon, which I also don't really like that idea. It's better than what we got, but I don't love the idea of him being a Duocon. And now we're just left with a Transformers 1 inspired Voyager. And we have no idea what the combiner parts are going to look like, how that's going to be released, or what. So does this mean Nexus Prime is going to make up the Commander slot of 2027? Does this mean that there's going to be an add-on pack sold that's just limbs and the lower part of a torso? Like, we have no idea what this means. We're just being told this. It almost sounds like Nexus Prime got leaked. Fans were very upset. So Mark Marr posted on Instagram combiner photos saying, hey, look, this can combine. Don't worry. But even the combiner photos got some pretty bad reception. So now, to save themselves, they probably knew this was going to happen anyway. And to save themselves, they're coming out with the combiner parts. But why not just wait till 2027 when you can get the complete package? Because now you're going to have to buy Nexus Prime this year and wait probably an entire year to get the combiner limbs to actually make him look cool and make him look good. So it's just, I don't know. The whole thing just sounds weird to me. Like they knew it wasn't going to be a hit, so they had to backtrack. But because of that, that means the combiner limbs won't be out till next year. The whole situation just sounds messy, and I don't know. It just sounds kind of stupid to me. But I will end with talking about Liege Maximo, who I think looks really, really good. I am all for Liege Maximo. I think making him based off of the G2 comic was the best thing ever because he looks super cool in the G2 comics. And this figure looks so cool. He's covered in spikes and wires just like the G2 comic book. And I think he looks fantastic. They also mentioned that he can sit in Starscream's throne and his backpack can come off and plug onto Starscream's throne. He also has a flip-out arm cannon. And his darts are based off of old comic book art. So I think he looks really, really cool. I think he looks great. I even like his alt mode. Because, like I said, I'm a fan of some of the weird alien Cybertronian alt modes. But I just think Nexus Prime's is lazy because it turns into a rectangle with a cockpit and wings strapped to it. And Liege Maximo kind of looks cool to me. So I'm really happy with Liege Maximo. I can't wait to see more in-hand photos of him and what he looks like beside Megatronus. And that's the wave. I only pre-ordered Swerve, Powerglide. I did pre-order Nexus Prime because I want the 13 Primes completed. And Liege Maximo, of course. Mark did mention he wouldn't mind doing a G2 Rook. Probably never going to happen, though, so I don't think that's going to happen. They mentioned Vector Prime is coming out in the next wave. No word on if he will be any different than the Legacy Vector Prime. But one thing that's been mentioned since Age of the Primes came out is that if you collect all of the Primes for Age of the Primes, at the very end, you will get to do something with all 13 artifacts. Well, now we've seen every Prime except Nexus Prime, and we can kind of infer that Nexus Prime will be either a re-release of the Legacy version or a repaint, slight retool. But what are we doing with all these accessories? Because I just got my Quintus and Amalgamus. I don't see how any of these accessories so far work together. So unless Vector Prime comes with something to combine everything together, I don't know how that's going to work. And we're also rumored to get a Sentinel Prime artifact pack. Maybe that will come with things to merge all these accessories, but I really don't know what to think. But we're told that if you collect all the accessories, you'll be able to do something. We just don't know what that is. And real quick, we have a listing for a Unicron Soldier for the next wave of Age of the Primes. That is 100% going to be Liege Maximo repainted, probably to look like Transformers Prime Unicron. That's what I'm predicting. So I think that should be pretty cool. And then we are going to get another fan stream. I think it is next weekend when New York Toy Fair comes out. And then that's when they're going to reveal the next wave of Studio Series. So what did you guys think of these reveals? Am I being too harsh on Nexus Prime? And who did you pre-order?